As someone who you know makes a lot of holiday content here on the channel, I hear things. And one of the things I hear the most is how people just kind of hate Thanksgiving dinner. They're tired of it, they think it's boring, they think it sucks. Now, as somebody who loves Thanksgiving himself, I understand the sentiment. And what I imagine they want instead is something satisfying, comforting, a dish that's famously not dry, but has all the flavors that you enjoy about Thanksgiving. Fresh sheets of kale pasta dough, turkey bolognese, potato bechamel, and a crunchy Thanksgiving nut topping. This is Thanksgiving lasagna. And of course, like all of my holiday recipes, you can get that in my holiday plan of attack that's gonna be linked down in the description. First up, we're making some green kale pasta dough. In Bologna, traditionally, their lasagna is green, made with spinach-infused pasta dough. For me, Thanksgiving is a kale holiday, so I'm gonna make mine with kale. Probably don't need all of this. You're gonna need about 60 grams of kale puree. What we wanna do is take the leaves off the ribs, and you can simply do that by tearing off the bottom, pinching like that, and then pulling. And then we just wanna tear it into smaller bits. And you just wanna make sure that there's no thick rib remaining, right? Only this little small part, that's what you want. So it should look like that once it's pulled. Now, that should be enough, right? We're gonna puree that. That should kind of compress down. That should be plenty. If you've never seen my favorite kale recipe of all time, my grandma's baked kale, I'm gonna leave a link down in the description. If you trust in me in any way, I would urge you guys to try it this year. So here we've got some water boiling. I'm just gonna add a little bit of salt to that, and then a little secret ingredient, a little baking soda. That alkaline kind of works with the chlorophyll to help that green color sort of maintain its green. About like a 1/16 or an 1/8 of a teaspoon, not a lot. And then we're just gonna drop in the kale for like 45 to 60 seconds. Try and brighten up and solidify that green. After about a minute, we can take it out of the boiling water and shock it in some ice water. And then that's what we have here. So I'm gonna wring out some of that water, get it into a blender. I'm gonna add some of those ice cubes. Try and keep that color bright once it blends. Just gonna add a little bit of oil. And let's see if there's enough moisture in there to get it blended. I doubt it. Touch of water. There you go. So I need 60 grams of the kale puree. It's a really beautiful color. The rest you could save, season it. Citrus, garlic, all that kind of stuff. It's a steak sauce. It could be whatever you want. Now to that, usually we just add eggs and 00 flour to make an egg dough, right? But to get that green color, we're gonna scale back 1 egg. We're gonna use 225 grams of whole egg, along with the 60 grams of the puree and 500 grams of the 00 flour. That should get us where we wanna be. Now I added 4 eggs, that got me to 210. You could go measure like half an egg to get you to 225, or you could just add another 15 grams of the puree and call it a day. So there you go. And go in with the puree. So we got 288 grams to 500 grams of flour. Just gonna whisk that together. And that's gonna be the color for our dough. 500 grams. Now, we made pasta a lot before on this channel. I'm gonna show you a different way where we can do it in a bowl. Some of you like to keep things nice and clean. So we're gonna mimic the same flour wall technique as we would on a board. We're just gonna use a bowl to sort of contain it. So once we make a little divot in the center, we're gonna add in our egg mixture. And just like we would before, we're gonna use a fork and a bench scraper. This is a plastic one. It's bendable, so I can kind of get underneath it. But we're gonna start same way, just whisking. You can even turn the bowl, and you're just slowly pulling in flour from the sides. This time you don't have to worry about the wall collapsing. You'll notice it's starting to thicken, and as it's thickening, we can transition to the bench scraper. Now I'm gonna use that curved end, and I'm just gonna start to cut the rest of that flour into that thick mass we just created. And this stage, I'm slowly just working to hydrate that flour into the egg. Once it's there, you can start to fold and compress onto itself. And now once it becomes too hard to do in the bowl, I'm just gonna turn it out onto the board, along with all that flour. Now we can start to knead it. Now I can already start to assess the feeling of it. It, to me, right now at this stage, feels more hydrated than normal. So I'm gonna take all that flour, I'm gonna push it into the center, and try and work all that flour into the dough. I'm just sort of taking the ball from one side of the board, and you're just sort of like pushing it around counterclockwise. And I'm gonna do this twice, but this first time, I'm definitely gonna be more rough with it. Try and really stretch and tear that gluten. Do this kneading for about 3 to 5 minutes. At this point, I don't need any more of the flour, so I'm just gonna clean the board off. I wanna be more like round it off a little bit more. And that's what you should be looking like at the first round after about 3 to 5 minutes. Then we're gonna take a piece of square plastic wrap. We're gonna flip the dough onto our hand, place it down. We're gonna take an end, see like that. Then we're gonna place it down and then make a pleat. And then we're gonna make another pleat. Then we're just gonna go around and pleat it till it just tightly wraps around the ball and it keeps some tension into that ball. We're gonna let this sit out at room temp for 20 minutes. It's been about 20 minutes. Let's see how it is. Not sticky, but definitely nice and soft. And what we're basically trying to do now is slightly work in some more air by folding it onto itself like that. I'm sort of just like gently pushing and rolling. And you'll see like even in like a minute or two, it's smoothed out the surface. So I'm just gonna do this for another 3 minutes or so. Pretty much you can do it slow for 5 minutes or fast for like 3. You can even start to see some of the air bubbles forming. It's nice and smooth, nice and round. Definitely on the hydrated side, but it should work out fine. Again, we're not shaping this, we're making lasagna sheets, so the more hydrated is not a problem. Now on to our turkey bolognese, which is very similar to a regular bolognese, including the pancetta. If you want it just to be white meat, you can forego that, but it does miss a certain flavor to this. And the only real difference we're going for here is the addition of some Thanksgiving herbs, some rosemary, sage, thyme, and bay leaf, and we're using ground turkey, right? When you buy ground white meat, there's usually a lean version, which is made just of the breast, and then an 85-15 blend. That includes the fat and the dark meat. That's the one we wanna get, and we wanna get 2 pounds of that. First thing I wanna do, just shave the carrots. And these are some carrots I got at the farmer's market. Fun fact about carrots, here in the Northeast, we actually grow better carrots in the fall than, say, California, because these are root vegetables. They grow underneath the ground, and so when that first frost comes, all the sugars inside of them concentrate, and you actually get a sweeter carrot. So now's the time to get some local carrots. I'm just gonna cut the stems off and then just chop them up small. If they're thick, you can split them in half, just rough. They're going into the food processor, but it's not a magic machine. You kinda gotta help it out a bit. That's why we dice it up first. Same with the celery. And with a mirepoix, there's actually sort of like a ratio. It's 2 parts onion to 1 part carrot to 1 part celery. And we're just gonna cut the top and the bottom off an onion, split it in half, peel off the skin, slice it, turn it, then dice it. Then we got our garlic cloves. We just wanna crack them, take the papers off, which by the way are not like authentic in bolognese sauce. You could probably call this more of like a ragù. So we have our vegetables and our food processor set up. First thing we're gonna do, take our pancetta, throw it in there. Vegetables, the pancetta, all being processed to be the same texture as we're gonna get the ground turkey. Hit it. This There we go. See that? That's what you're looking for. Almost like ground beef. Get that back into a bowl. Then you can throw everything into the processor. Same idea here. Done. Now, I'm well aware, ground chicken, ground turkey, it's always kind of hard to work with. It's got a lot of moisture content in it. It's hard to brown, and ultimately hard to make delicious. So the first step on how I'm gonna make it nice is take it and just sort of get it broken up, because it is in these kind of loose shards. Now between all the water in the vegetables, all the moisture in the pancetta, and the softness and the moisture you can sort of see accumulating in the turkey itself, all of this is gonna take a while to cook in the beginning, because the key to flavor in a bolognese is caramelization. So to do that, we're gonna cook the pancetta and the vegetables in one pan, the final pan, a Dutch oven, and we're gonna cook the difficult to brown and deal with ground turkey in a big Maiden non-stick pan. Now I'm just not using those pans. I'm gonna be using a selection of some of my amazing cookware for this particular recipe. Stainless steel saucier, stainless steel frying pan, the Dutch oven, the non-stick, all products from our amazing sponsor today, Maiden. I'm even using their serveware to bake and to serve my lasagna. Now it is the holidays. You're likely thinking of gifts for the cook in your family or even for yourself. And the only reason I don't have to go shopping for another cookware brand is because Maiden has everything. Look at these wine glasses. Maiden. Literally everything you need to cook and serve food at home, they got it covered. But of course, the star is their stainless steel. Crafted in Italy and made of a premium 5-ply stainless steel material which allows for superior heat retention, even heating, and ease of heat control. And the handles are designed to stay cool on the stovetop and are ergonomic to help balance the pan. The design of the handle is better than all of their competitors, even the high-end ones that everyone raves about. This one is easy, comfortable, and stable. So whether you're stocking up on new stainless steel for yourself or you're trying to shop for the perfect gift for your family or friends, Maiden's Black Friday sale is happening right now. So if you want to get some shopping out of the way, head on to the link in my description. Now let's make Bolognese. Now you could use one pan, but 2 pans is going to do this twice as fast. My largest non-stick pan on one side and a Dutch oven on the other, olive oil to cover the bottom of each. And I'm going to set a timer to show you how long you need to do this for. Turkey goes in the non-stick, the prosciutto goes in the Dutch oven. And spread that turkey out, season it with salt, and leave it, and allow the moisture to get pulled out. And with a ground turkey, there's going to be a lot of moisture. And we need to cook that out and evaporate it. So just give it a toss and continue to start to break it up. We want these into fine little meat bits. Over in the Dutch oven, our pancetta has rendered its fat and has begun to brown. So now we can add in the vegetables. And the moisture in those vegetables gonna start to deglaze the bottom of that pan, and we wanna start to build that back up again. While the turkey moisture is evaporating, we're gonna continue breaking it up and processing it into fine bits. And since it's so lean, we might need to add a little bit more olive oil to help it along. We just wanna continue moving it around until it begins to start frying in the fat and browning just like this. Now in the Dutch oven, if it ever gets too brown on the bottom of the pan, we can take the wine, deglaze it just to make sure the fond at the bottom of the pan, which we want to build, never gets too dark. Now we're close with the turkey. It's starting to fry and brown, so we just want to keep it moving around, tossing it in that fat and allowing all those little kernels, or as much as you can, to get nice and dark and brown. At some point, there's just a little too much in there, and I've got space in the Dutch oven, so I'm gonna move some over there and use that to help develop the fond in the pan while freeing up space in the non-stick pan to finish browning them. And see now how brown that turkey is? It's exactly what you're looking for. Now we can start to combine that and add that to the vegetables in the Dutch oven. Again, we're gonna let that cook and start to build back up that fond on the bottom of the pan. Now we're gonna take all of our herbs and wrap them up in a little bit of a package and get those ready to toss in. And once you start to see the pan starting to brown, that's the time we wanna start to add in a few tablespoons of the tomato paste. That tomato paste we need to cook out and is also gonna then help that fond develop a little bit quicker. And now we wanna be careful of burning the fond. So once that tomato's mixed in, as soon as we see any spots on the bottom of the pan that are a little bit too dark, we're just gonna hit it with a little bit of salt and then begin to deglaze the pot. At this stage, it should start to look like a thick, delicious bolognese already. Now all we have to do is add in some turkey broth, and it's too early to make it, so at the store in the freezer aisle, there's this really great bona fide turkey broth. It's not sponsored, but it is my preferred stock. Once that's in, we can add in our herb bundle, and one thing I forget to add is the milk. But we're gonna set a timer for 30 minutes and check on it every hour, give it a good stir at the bottom, and this is when I remembered I forgot the milk. So I added it here. It doesn't really make a difference as long as it's got some time in there. The milk just helps to tenderize the meat. The lid back on, and after 3 hours of cooking, it should be done. Although if you let it go further, it's just gonna get better. Now we can take out that herb bundle and we can finish it with a little bit of cream, which is not an authentic Italian thing at this point in a bolognese, but it is an American touch. And I do like how it kind of lightens the color. It shouldn't look like turkey bolognese or anything other than bolognese. Now to finish it, a few knobs of cold butter off the heat, and then you could finish it with some Parmesan cheese, but we're adding it to the layers once we assemble it. We just want to get it into a bowl, allow it to cool, and rest overnight. Day 2 today, and we're gonna do a few things first. We're gonna take out our dough, let it sort of come down to room temperature. I'm gonna get a Dutch oven or a big pot on the stove, and we're gonna get it up to temperature. That's gonna be for boiling our pasta sheets. And I'm gonna start preheating my oven to 400 degrees. Now, onto our potato bechamel. Bechamel is like this velvety cream sauce thickened by a roux. So we're going to add an element of potato, but also use it as that thickener agent. It's gonna be like this loose pomme puree bechamel type of deal that goes in. So I got 3 Yukon Golds, just gonna peel them. And Yukon Golds are actually pretty small usually. I intentionally sought out 3 big ones. Once we peel it, into some water. Stop it from oxidizing. Your potato skins, you can keep them, fry them up. I might even throw them into the little crumb topping we add at the end. You just need to rinse those too so they don't oxidize. I'm just gonna cut these into quarters so they cook a little faster. Now this water is starchy. We're just gonna rinse it out until we get some clear water. And then we can get them up on the stove. Season with some salt, bring it up to a boil, drop it down to a simmer, and cook them till there is no resistance going through them when you poke it with a cake tester or a knife. And now the goal here is we're gonna use milk and cream, but we're gonna spike it with Thanksgiving flavors, garlic, shallots, herbs, bay leaf, and infuse that flavor in there, get it into the potatoes. Here we got some shallots. We're gonna strain this so you can just slice them thin with the skin on. Those into a bowl, a few cloves of garlic. You wanna crack them. You can keep the skins on, you can take them off, whatever you wanna do. And we're just gonna chop those up roughly. Big enough to withstand some heat. I'm trying to get some caramelization on all this stuff to infuse that cream and milk. Then I'm gonna add 2 cups of whole milk to a small pot, 1 cup of cream. I'm gonna get that warming up. Just need it a little warm. So the milk is in the back burner warming up while we add some butter and some olive oil to a pan. We'll get that nice and hot. And then to that, we're gonna add the sliced shallots and the garlic. And we wanna really start to brown and caramelize those things and extract their flavor and give them to that butter and the oil. Once you start to see those nicely browning and starting to smell really well, we can toss in our herbs. Those herbs are very Thanksgiving forward flavors, so it's gonna give it a little bit more flavor. And once they're nice and caramelized, everything is browned, almost like browning bones for a stock, we can transfer them all into the milk and allow that milk to almost steep on a low heat like a tea with all of those flavors. And in a few minutes, that milk is gonna soak in all of the flavors of those caramelized vegetables and herbs. While that milk is steeping, our potatoes are almost there. One thing you'll notice, they're kind of sharding a little bit. This is the pot I used to make the kale puree. I never rinsed it, so there's a little bit of baking soda in there, but it's okay. We're just looking for those potatoes to be fully tender so that when I poke them with a cake tester, none of them cling to the cake tester like you see here. I'm gonna let them cook for a few more minutes until they're fully tender through and through. These are done. I'm just gonna drain them. Then what you wanna do is let that steam air dry them. Get all that moisture out of there. Once they're dry, we're gonna rice them. You can even take this and push them through that. Scoop in some of the potatoes and push them through. Then we're gonna strain our milk. It should smell incredible, and then we're just gonna push all that flavor out of the vegetables. Gonna add a knob of butter, just about most of the cream. Grab a whisk. Go ahead with all of it. Then I'm gonna add in some Parmesan cheese. We're just gonna blitz it smooth. And there you have a Parmesan palm puree bechamel. Beautiful. We're gonna keep that warm. Now on to our dough, which is very nice and soft and pliable. Feels like a beautiful dough. And even though it's that moist and hydrated, there's no sticking. That's a telltale sign. So here's what we're gonna do. Let's give it a cut in half. See the pliability, the air pockets we created? Cover that. Now I'm gonna cut this in half. Right now I'm gonna start to flatten them both out. Stretch it out a little bit. And I've got some flour on hand just in case things get a little sticky. And what we're gonna do is just get this nice and even to start. Roll it out the long way, turn it. Stuff like that starts happening, just a little bit. So from here, I'm just trying to even it out. Create a nice even sheet like that. Gonna dust a little bit where my rolled out sheet is going to lay. Then I'm gonna start at 0, already sticking. So now I'm gonna add a little bit more of that flour and then start jacking it up. Then give that a cut because it's already getting hard to deal with. So now starting at 3 for both of those, we gotta remember that one has to start at 3 as well. And then we're gonna do that until the 7th setting on the Mercato Atlas pasta machine. Now I'm just gonna measure my baking dish. So I'm just gonna trim off the edge, and then I'm gonna take my ruler. It was about 9 inches. So I'm just gonna cut 9 inches. I'm just gonna lay these out on the cutting board to dry out. And every now and then just give them a little rotate. After a while, they just will stop being sticky. Now I'm probably gonna do more sheets, but because space is always a problem with something like this, we're gonna move on to cook this batch of sheets. Here's the protocol. I have a sheet tray with a towel on it. I'm gonna place this safely away from the fire, and that's where I'm gonna take the sheets out after 30 seconds of cooking, no more, and dry them here. From there, I'm gonna take the pasta sheets and lay them in a single layer over 2 pieces of parchment and stack them up. Here's how to do this fairly fast. So once our water's boiling, we're gonna season it really well because the sheets only cook for 30 seconds, so they can be well seasoned. I'm gonna take a couple sheets and toss them right into the water and set a timer for no more than 30 seconds. Even less would be great at this thinness of a sheet. After about 20-30 seconds, I'm gonna use some tongs, transfer them out of the water, lay them on a towel to just damply cool and dry them, then start layering them on the parchment paper. I'm just gonna create a little bit of a flow, dropping the pastas, drying them, layering them. You gotta be careful with them. The tongs can rip them, but ripping them doesn't really even matter because we're just going to be layering them anyway. So don't worry too much about that. And the better you become at it, the more you can sort of cook at one time. If you're scared, maybe do 1 to 2 at a time, get a hang of it, and then you can sort of ramp it up. And if you did this right, these sheets are so gonna have texture even once this lasagna is done baking. Once they're all cooked, we're ready to assemble the lasagna. Now I've got this amount left, right? But this is gonna be plenty for this 2.6 quart, 9 by 9-ish baking dish. Again, another beautiful selection from Maiden. So this should be plenty. Now we've got our ragù. Now I don't want it hot, but I do want it a little bit more spreadable. So I'm gonna pop it in the microwave for like a minute, minute and a half, and essentially just take the chill off of it. Then we've got Parmigiano Reggiano, our beautiful bechamel. First thing, we're gonna put a little bit of that bechamel on the bottom. One thing I actually like to do on the sides, take a little butter and just grease the sides, try and get some nice crispy action happening on the edges of the lasagna. And then just dot it with some butter on the bottom, and some of our Bolognese. Then we can start to layer in our lasagna. And if there's any imperfect sheets, I leave them to be sort of like Band-Aids on the edge. Next up, more sauce, cheese, Bolognese. For me, when making lasagna, the goal is as many layers as possible. And so at the end of the day, I probably got 7 to 8 layers of pasta sheets in this baking dish. And the trick is, once you get to the top, the final topping is gonna just be put on in reverse. We're gonna add the meat first, then the bechamel on top, and then top it with Parmesan cheese. And that's gonna create this really great brown roasted color to the top of the lasagna that's gonna be very appetizing once it's baked. Throw some foil on top, then we're just gonna get it on a sheet tray and then throw it in a 425-degree oven. It's gonna cook for about 45 minutes, but after 25 minutes, we're gonna check it, remove the foil, and then allow it to start to brown and get those edges of the pasta sheet nice and crisp. So 25 more minutes there, we're gonna check on that. I got my bechamel in a smaller pot, along with some of that sauce. We're gonna place the lasagna on top of that, and then on top of that, garnish it with like a potato skin, pecan, breadcrumb, garlicky herb, sort of crunchy topping. Now the sage leaves we're gonna pick. We're gonna do a good amount. We're just gonna take some time and just pull the leaves. You don't want too much. We just need to slice some garlic. We want them very thin, and we're gonna cook them slow, so they almost become like garlic chips. Then about a 1/4 cup of panko or so, depending on how many you're serving. Maybe a 1/2 cup. First, we're gonna fry up the potatoes. So in our stainless steel frying pan, just gonna add a bit of oil, enough to kind of cover the bottom of the pan by like a 1/2 inch, and we're gonna fry those potato skins in that oil. Keep them moving to allow them to brown evenly, and once they start to shrivel up and get crisp, then we can sort of just shimmy them outside of the oil onto a paper towel to drain. And I'm just gonna pour out that oil, allow the pan to cool slightly, and then we can add in a knob of butter and then throw in those sliced pieces of garlic. I wanna cook this a little bit slower. Let that garlic almost become like a garlic chip without kind of getting too much color on them. So once you start to see a little bit of browning on the edges of that garlic, then we can go in and add in our nuts, get those tossed in along with the sage leaves. Now we want to get those sage leaves nice and crispy, so we want to cook those until the green in the leaves start to change into like a deep forest green. Once you start to see that transition, then you can go ahead and add in the breadcrumbs and get those tossed in. Maybe add a little bit of that oil back into the pan and just try and get everything to brown evenly. Nice and slow here is the way. Garlicky, nutty, crunchy, herby, everything you want. I'm sorry, but that's a beautiful topping. Now, our lasagna should be ready. Oh, she's a beaut. You see these layers? That looked bad to you before you put them in, but now it looks like a masterpiece, a work of art. Layers of texture and crunch, the best part of a lasagna. But this ain't ready. We gotta let this rest for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, it's settled, it's calmed down, and it's gonna be able to be sliced and for us to pull out a beautiful, perfect slice of lasagna. Now to plate, instead of topping it with more sauce, I'm gonna create a bed of the bechamel and the Bolognese. Right on top, we're gonna place that portion of lasagna. On top of that, we're gonna place some of that crunchy topping right in the center of the lasagna and around the plate. We're gonna finish it with some Parmigiano Reggiano. And there you've got Thanksgiving on a plate in lasagna form, something that if served on Thanksgiving instead of turkey, no one would be mad at. Sick move. The edge of the pasta, amazing. Pasta sheets are tender, but they hold up, as you can see. And the crunchy topping on top adds these like little surprises, almost like a Chex Mix as you're eating the whole thing. Look, I don't wanna hear about Thanksgiving being nonsense. It's about family. If you can't make good food during it, you're not watching the right creators. You wanna host holidays like a pro? You're gonna get my ebook down in the description. This is one of one. One of you guys owns a printing company and just sent me one copy, so that's why I have this. It's got all my turkey recipes, side recipes, stuffing recipes, sweets, plans on how to execute them, everything you need to know to bang out Christmas and Thanksgiving. And buying that greatly supports the channel. It really goes a long way in helping. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.